right, we'd like to get started. Call this meeting to order. First action item is to approve the minutes of the January 25th, 2024 meeting. Minutes were in our packet. There are no corrections or additions. We ask for a motion to approve the minutes from last month.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? All in favor of approving the minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay. We'll have our open forum on action items. When called, provide your name and address for the record. After this, you have 3 minutes to share your comments regarding action items on tonight's agenda. With the Planning Commission, please refer to the rules of conduct for public meetings and public comment at the end of the agenda. So if you all pick up agenda, you can read through that. Are there any comments regarding the action items from the assembly? On this side? Do we have anybody online?
No, online is viewing only now.
Right, I understand. But is there anybody viewing?
I don't know, I don't think it tells me anymore, so, but, yeah, they're just viewing, so they don't get an opportunity to.
Okay, since there's no comments, we'll move on to our subdivision and land development applications. The first item of business is a Calvary Chapel development. And someone here from
Yeah.
Timber.
Yes.
Where do you want me, on that one over there?
Yeah, you can put it on that one. Most of the planning commission should be familiar with it, that way the audience can see the board. We'll turn it if the planning commission has a particular question. You guys saw this several months back. They had gone for a special exception for their driveway entrance coming through some soils that are considered floodplain under the township ordinances. They're moving into the existing, it's the old Cambridge scale building at the corner of 322 and Todd. I'm running through all those streets that are there. And Todd, the building itself isn't changing except for the addition of like a portico, kind of overhead drop-off. There is a substantial expansion of the parking lot to have enough parking spaces to serve the church use. They're annexing some land off the additional agricultural parcel that's kind of behind the property if you're looking at it from 322. The entrance off 322 will be closed off, and the full access entrance will be off of Todd Road for there. So, do you have any questions, before we hit the review letter, do you guys have any questions about the concept in general, or do you have anything to add just for the basis of the project?
No, unless there's any questions that I can.
Any questions about the general project? I think we've gone over it, like I said, ahead of time at the special exception application. So from a zoning standpoint, we did get the zoning relief to have that driveway entrance cross through there. Mike Reiner did the review letter. They're showing sufficient parking and everything. They do show a loading space. The truck turning diagrams show that the trucks coming in will interfere with some of the parking spaces there along the side of the building. But in conversations with the applicant, the deliveries or anything to the church won't occur during the church hours. So there'll be a note on the plan limiting hours of truck deliveries to avoid any interference through there. They need to just provide a lighting plan. We'll verify that does comply with the ordinance requirements along with any signage. From a zoning standpoint, in essence, it is compliant. If they provide those couple other items. The subdivision land development ordinances, they have a few drafting comments through there. They have to confirm if there's any ultimate right-of-way needed from PennDOT along 322, and there's a tiny portion of the lot that's being annexed, that abuts Route 10. So, traffic study, they had a few minor comments, nothing substantial through there, so they just need to address a few minor comments from that. And need to determine with PennDOT's requiring an HOP for the removal of that existing entrance. They do have a couple items that would be waivers, number 8 in our letters. One of them, it's the grade of the access drive as it approaches the roadway. Our ordinance requires a grade of not more than 4%. Their proposed driveway, once they're finished their regrading, be somewhere between 4 and 8 due to needing to get a culvert under the driveway there to drain the water from the area where there's existing solar arrays is to the other side where there's an existing inlet, as well as provide a roadside swale along Providence there. So they are asking for a waiver from that 4% requirement. They're asking for a waiver also from providing curbing along the driveway entrance in order to maintain a gutter line along there for drainage, and there is no other curb in that area or along the roadway there. In the parking lot configuration, we generally require landscape islands at the end of bays and every so many spaces. They're not proposing landscape islands along the road spaces. They do have one on the one side separating the two rows, kind of a planning strip that's also serving as a stormwater management facility. But they are asking for a waiver from providing those landscape islands at the end and any intermediate ones that would be required. And then I think that's all from the Saldo. They're doing public water and sewers, so they just need to coordinate any new connections, change in use with the sewer authority, the water authority. We had declared that this could be a minor land development plan. As such, the landscaping is at the discretion of the planning commission. So the landscaping that they're proposing is within the center kind of island near the portico door, where that is serving as a stormwater management facility, as well as that parking island separation. There's some existing trees down along 322, just right along the property line, and a couple wrapping around to what would be the western side of the building. There's no proposed landscaping kind of in the area of those existing solar arrays or along the new northern property line abutting the agricultural property. I don't know if the Planning Commission has any comments about the parking scheme that's proposed, or any of the waivers requested from the Saldo, which again are the grade of the driveway entrance, no curbing for the driveway entrance, and not providing any landscape islands and divial bays or other landscape features in the parking lot.
Jan, I think it was a fourth bullet point or 2.
Yeah, that's in the stormwater waiver, so I was going to hit that when we hit the next section. Yeah, no, we'll get it. So any comments on the requested waivers, the landscaping, or any of the other Saldo comments?
So where are they showing the existing landscaping? Oh, no, the proposed one.
Right, the proposed one, there's a little bit in kind of where the building portico is, which is on kind of the rear side of the building. If you're standing on 322, there's like a square island. There's a couple trees and shrubs proposed in there. And then that planting strip that goes in the middle of the parking aisle, again, towards what would be the rear of the building if you're standing on 322. If you want just to turn that landscaping plan to the Planning Commission for a few minutes so they can point those out.
So here's the portico, that will be the main entrance to the island. And then this is water.
So the Long Island that you have between the parking, in the legend, it says it's mulch and leaf compost or shredded wood. Not sure I'd consider that landscaping.
But a planter, and there is no proposed bushes or anything at this point.
The field to the east, what's currently, is that a farm field or is that a pasture or what is that property?
It's being farmed at pumpkins, I think.
What I was going to suggest is some screening along that side towards the houses for the east, towards the east. But if it is farmed, I'm not sure farmers really like big high shade trees that eventually will encroach on the fields, but your landscaping is pretty limited. I think you should find some spots to maybe strategically locate some along that eastern property line. And I know it's kind of tight with your stormwater, but in my opinion, is you could add some trees along
About everybody's with that one?
there. Yeah, anything,
Yeah,
something
something now or.
Those would really make a nice buffer once they get big.
and they don't go out, so they pretty much go up, so if it wouldn't be,
So along here is where we're talking about.
yes.
Yeah, somewhat along down
Yeah,
that
and-
area.
and, you know, even all the way to your northern border, wherever you can.
Maybe we can give the church some privacy in the parking lot there.
Up along here, yeah, sure. We
Yeah.
have that swale that we keep to the east side of the swale. Sure.
I even think the parking lot is a lot of parking lot, you know, I mean, it just looks,
The rough and broken out.
yeah.
I think it's due to the number of spaces needed for the church. But
It's a lot of parking, how many parking spaces is that?
let's see. What the total is.
160?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of parking lot and not a lot of landscaping. I just think it looks. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
As long as it doesn't hit him in the head, I'm okay. Sorry, Troy. I need to find the button that puts it back up.
I just think it'll soften the look of the whole, like, there's just a lot of park asphalt in the building, you know. 160.
So within those bioretention strips that are there, can you plant some trees like river birch or, you know, willows or something else, not just real low shrubs, you know, wherever they could? And then, Aaron, anything, would it soften it at all? I know the side, that's kind of going up towards 322, really doesn't have any landscaping there. Are you looking for something internally, or are you looking if they could put something kind of between the solar array and the parking?
Well, once they take that existing drive out, I guess can they not plant along that side of the access to 322 there?
That triangular area up there is actually owned by Rickmar, from across the street.
Okay.
They may be able to inquire. Like, there's some existing trees along the building right there. I don't know if there's any right in the point, if they could get any squeezed in to stay out of it, that's right off of there, but they may have space between that solar array and the parking lot to do exterior ones. Or I don't know if there's any space along the existing, doesn't look like there's any, is there any place along the existing building for any like flower beds or like any type of vegetation, or is that all a concrete pad?
Across the south side
Yeah.
is all the cabin rack of the building. That's existing. This is all existing cabin up into this area here. There's grass back in here, there's grass here, and there's what's a little bit along here. This triangle is not their property.
So there's no proposed landscaping even going around the building or anything? Like I'm looking at it here, there's no beds with bushes along the building?
Just some trees along the 322 side, and a few across the backside.
Those are existing, right?
Our approximate position of existing trees.
Yeah, just, it doesn't feel very, it feels a little cold, I guess, with no landscaping along the building. More in the parking lots.
So would you,
You need the spaces.
Yeah, that's IBC, building code requirement for the assembly number that we have for the church.
Yeah.
It goes right off the occupancy of the assembly class for the church, boils out.
right, our zoning ordinance requires 2 spaces per 5 seats. The total capacity is 400 seats. Which yields
About
80 times 2 is 160. So that is in compliance with zoning.
Of course, we have 7 handicap spots as well.
Split that one. Put something like this in, just push this out. If we get too close to the.
Let's just count through here. No vegetated swale.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they have to
Like 5 foot, yeah.
try to get more somewhere, I honestly think it's.
Are you maxed out on, could you expand your LOD into the solar panels? And maybe pull that parking and do between the parking areas like you're doing on the east side? You're
talking about right here?
Yeah, between the back-to-back parking, kind of in the center of that.
yeah, expand it where you were showing it.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a swale catch up, the water coming off the parking area.
You'd have to maintain the swell, but
To the
push it
south of the
a little
swale.
bit.
Like if they could put like a 5-foot planting strip there in between the double-decker road parking.
Yeah, looking at moving the swale to provide some more space in your parking area, so you could kind of do what you did over on the east side. You know, a
Yeah.
planter down the center.
So a planter down the center between the back-to-back,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
extending the parking.
that's what we're suggesting.
Yeah, that's doable.
Yeah.
That's all existing, and it needs to be reworked anyway.
Right.
The whole parking area is existing? I thought I understood that a portion of it was
Yeah,
existing.
the existing, I can go back the page, but it's about like this.
It's kind of part of this,
So what's that going to do to the truck terminal?
up in here.
What?
It shouldn't affect the truck turning template. No, because if it's going between that double decker, like the back-to-back parking that's like this in the center of that parking area, it's going to have to shift that parking lot edge closer to the solar arrays, those like rectangles at the corner of the property. So it shouldn't affect the truck turning up along the side of the building there. I think that shouldn't have a negative effect on that.
I think so.
What do you all think? Make that suggestion, see if you can
Is
make
it,
work.
is like 5 foot wide, Aaron, what you're thinking there,
Yeah.
like plant strip? Okay. And then the arborvitae's or other screening along
Yeah, just.
that
yeah,
outer
just-
property line.
Yeah, just a block.
Okay. All right. Any other landscaping related comments or questions about the salary waivers that we mentioned?
Well, there's no curbing on the street, correct?
No, there's no curbing on top.
I think waiving curb is a good idea as far as the 8%. I mean, you gotta have that to get the pipe under.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna try to reduce that as much as we can by making a modification, but it will be between 4 and 8.
Okay, so for the stormwater ordinance comments, they do have to get an NPDES permit from DEP due to the limit of disturbance. We're having them put an under drain in the stormwater rain gardens, just so they have trouble infiltrating. There is a mechanism to dewater them, so water doesn't stand in there for too long. Minimum distance between a basin discharge point and downstream property boundary should be 25 feet. The proposed infiltration facility does hit it on the eastern portion of the property, so waiver is required there. The other couple of comments are more related to construction details, adding a few notes on the plans that they need to do an operations and maintenance agreement. So they are asking for the waiver for that rock apron A6 to encroach upon the 25-foot boundary offset. Their justification in their waiver request letter is due to existing improvements and features at the property. There's no other location on the property for the discharge point that doesn't encroach into the 25-foot boundary offset. So, it's the direction that the runoff is coming now. There is an existing inlet in Todd Road right there to capture the runoff coming down. There are that kind of remaining flag portion of that agricultural lot that comes down there. There's no improvements in that area that would be affected. The runoff is directed down along that property line to the inlet, not directly onto the adjacent farm field there. So, you have any questions about the stormwater review comments or that stormwater waiver request for the separation distance to the property line?
So we can take action on, everybody have a copy of their letter identifying the 4 waivers that they're asking for.
We can do all of them one at a time.
I believe we can do them all at once.
You can do them at
If
once.
we're going to approve them all, or just
Right,
not
if you
approve
have the same position on all of them, you could do it, and the motion could reference the timber tech. Well, from the applicant, it's the waiver request letter from David Stoltz, who's dated February 16, 2024.
So it's salvo sections 22,615, 1C and 3C, driveway slope. Items that was discussed. The second request is section 22,615, looks like 1I and J and 3C. That's the way of the curbing. The third request is 22,617, 1G, 3, and 3B, and looks like 629, 5 and 6. And this waiver is for relief from landscape items. And then the final waiver request is for stormwater section 2311, 1F4, which deals with relief from the rock apron on the encroachment to the boundary. So I'd entertain a motion and a second with the recommendation to the supervisors on a direction for the waiver request.
We can either make your landscaping comments a condition of that waiver request or an additional condition of additional final plan approval, either one.
So this is a motion to recommend to the supervisors granting the waivers as requested.
Yes.
Okay, and we need a second.
I'll second.
Okay. A motion and a second. Any comments? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Okay, and then next, as long as you're satisfied with our office reviewing the updated landscaping plan, ensuring that they provide, we'll add it to the motion, then they would be looking for a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to grant conditional final plan approval. That would be contingent upon complying with Technicon's February 1st, 2024 letter and providing the landscape kind of island, 5 foot wide between that back-to-back parking area along the side of the building, as well as arborvitae or similar screening along the common property line of the agricultural field.
So we're looking for a motion of what she said.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Next item is the Tel Hai LD Development submission plan.
Well, Alex, bring that up there. We last saw Tel Hai back around, I think it was 2015 or so, when I looked it up. When they did phases 3 and 4 of their expansion, which included the Stonecroft apartment buildings, the Rolling Hill Circle with all the cottages around it, the community center. As part of that, there was originally a preliminary plan that was for phases 2 through 5. Phase 5 ultimately would have included a HUD apartment building up near the Stonecroft apartments, as well as a hybrid apartment building down at kind of the bottom of Rolling Hill Circle. They came back to the township and worked through a modification to their original settlement agreement with the township for expansion and development of this area to allow the expansion that's proposed herein. So that HUD apartment building and the one hybrid apartment building that would have been phase 5 are incorporated into this plan, along with some additional cottages, one extra hybrid apartment building, a renovation of the existing nursing wing from the main complex, as well as provision for an ambulance building for the Honeybrook Elverson EMS that will have an ambulance building directly on the Tel Hai site. So I'll allow Alex to go through the plan, point out the areas, and then we can delve into the review letter.
Good evening, I'm Alex Field with RGS Associates. With me this evening is Scott Burkholder from Tel Hai Community. As Jen walked through the scope of the project and the summary, I'll just kind of point out on the plan the areas that include the improvements that she noted. When we start with orientation, so Beaver Dam Road is down here, Park Road is here going north-south. The area highlighted is the Tel Hai community, which is just under 150 acres, located in the agricultural district, but as Jen noted, through the settlement agreement in 2008 and then 2022, there are some provisions that allowed some additional improvements as well as reconfiguration of some of the items that were included in the previous phases. So starting at Beaver Dam Road, if you're familiar with the campus, this is Tel Hai Circle. As you come in, this area here where the dark brown building is the proposed nursing wing. That will replace existing nursing wings on the campus. So there's 64 beds that are proposed in this building. So this will be a tear down of a portion of the existing building and the construction of new nursing wing in its place. That will include some reconfiguration of the existing parking lot here, expansion of the existing parking lot that's out front, as well as a new entrance into the building and a turnaround port in this area. Just to the east of that, this is the storm basin that you see when you come onto the campus, sewer treatment plant, and then the red building here is the proposed ambulance center that Jen noted that was incorporated into the latest settlement agreement. Moving up to the north, this is the ridge line up in this area, so the water tower that I'm sure everybody's familiar with sits here. Coming beyond that water tower, there's a
Alex,
new...
can you turn it a little bit more?
I can
Maybe back up against the wall.
Yep, you tell me what the best position is and I'll back that.
Troy, are you good there?
Does that work for everybody?
I'll try to stay a little bit.
I'll try to stay this side as much as I can. What's that?
Just
Just a little,
compact area.
there we go. All right.
All right, so just hit, Alex, you can just point the nursing wing is the dark brown.
Yep. So Beaver Dam Road's down here, the nursing wing, which is the replacement of some existing portions of the buildings here, and the ambulance building is proposed here in red. Up here is where I was indicating the water tower is located. So just north of that, we're proposing cottages on a court, very similar to what exists out there now. Same style, scale cottages, actually the same models that exist on the campus today from phases 2, 3, and 4 will be here. This will include some reconfiguration of the existing event lawn that's in this area. Landmark here is the amphitheater that sits here, so this will have some more recreation facilities in it. Moving to the north, up Tree Line Drive, if you head west on the Rolling Hill Circle, there's 4 cottages shown here. That's in the place of an existing stormwater basins. That will be located here. This is an existing stormwater basin that will stay intact. These are also existing stormwater basins here. This one will be modified as part of the project. Coming around Rolling Hill Circle, as Jen noted, there were 36 hybrid apartments, which are ground floor parking apartments above that were included. In the original configuration, there were 3 of those buildings here. That has been changed to include cottages along Rolling Hill Circle here and going down to 2 hybrid buildings, each of which will have 18 apartments in them here. The last item, also that was part of Phase 5 from the original master plan, is the apartment building here. There's 42 units that would be included in that as part of the project. The existing campus will remain to be served by the existing water tower and plant that I noted earlier, as well as the existing sewer treatment plant that was just recently expanded and improved. That's so far.
Yeah,
So the HUD building's gonna be built as part of this?
Yeah, so that's shown here. I think that would probably be a little bit later in the timing. I believe kind of internally, this is all one preliminary final plan, so this isn't a phase plan. I think timing wise, probably the cottages would begin first, and then moving into the nursing. The ambulance would be driven by when they would look to proceed with that, and then probably the apartments, those apartments would be, or all the apartments would be sometime in the same time frame.
One other question, the breaking the retaining wall, like off the left corner,
Right.
is that a sump inlet? Is that what you're doing there?
Yeah, I believe the drainage comes through there, and there's a swale that comes down and ties in to a head wall in here that then takes it into the storm basin.
Yeah, I understand the developments. I was
So
just,
up a little further, Alex.
the break in the retaining wall, where the retaining wall breaks. Between
Right,
units 3 and 4.
right here.
Is I assume that's an existing line, and that's,
I think I was trying to remember where you were. I think that's a new line.
that's a new
Oh,
line.
yeah, there is an inlet proposed here.
And that's gonna be sunk, because it's where you have to break in that retaining wall.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that's collecting at that point.
Sorry.
So that will be natural. You're saying here.
Well, they got some, it looks like there's some slope issues,
Yeah,
which
so
is
it's,
why there's a retaining wall, but there's a break in the retaining wall, and there's an inlet there. My concern was that it was sunk, so that the water would get to it and not scoot on by it.
Yeah.
right, there's an inlet that will sit in here, there will be surface drainage, and as you noted, Gary, there's some slope, obviously, that comes down, we're trying to get down to grade as quickly as we can. There's also another inlet that sits down, downstream of that, where that break in the wall is there, and then there's a end wall right in this area here. And then that's where that swale comes around the back of these units, and then down to the, I think there's a head wall then.
Yeah, that's an existing, well-established swale that was put in as part of the prior
And it
phases
crosses,
of development.
it crosses the walking trail, the swell crosses the walking trail.
It's of course right on the break.
Right at the break,
That's
yeah.
always the way, right? And actually, the walking trail, the walking trail's out here, it scoots right in between the two, in between the walking trail and the back of that existing triplex. And then hits a head wall right down in here, that then takes it into this first,
Yeah, it stays on this side of the,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
there's the head wall, or the end wall, there's the swale, and then here. This is the swale.
no, it's private water sewer. Yep.
It's piped under. Okay.
So the plan itself, as proposed, complies with the provisions of that 2022 settlement agreement modification that Alex described, as well as certain variances that went before the zoning hearing board in conjunction with that settlement agreement. So we verified as part of our review that they are in compliance with those. As Alice mentioned, it is tying into the existing water and sewer infrastructure. Any existing trails, if they're interrupted by this development, are being rerouted and connected. They did re-verify their wetlands boundaries, they did infiltration testing and everything related to the new and relocated stormwater facilities. So are there any other general questions before I dive into the review letter about what's being proposed? Okay. So from a zoning standpoint, just as I noted, they are complying with the maximum density, sensitive feature disturbance, open space requirements, everything of those settlement agreements and zoning hearing decision. They're doing seedling plantings, proposed as replacement plantings, just like they did in the phase 2 through 5 plans, within the established existing wooded areas, to promote more healthy woodlands through there. They are providing the required number of parking spaces for all the dwelling units. All of the individual cottages have their driveways Through there, the parking for the HUD apartment building was done when the Stonecroft Apartments was done, so all of the improvements up there are done. It's ready for that apartment building when that comes. There are parking garages under the high-red apartment buildings, as Alex noted. From a salvage standpoint, one of their waiver requests is to view this as a combined preliminary final plan approval. They've designed the plans to the level of final plans, with sufficient detail and level of design. They have submitted to the Conservation District and DEP for their modified NPDS permit. Their water and sewer system extensions are under review. They'll need to comply with any comments on those. With regard to the proposed road system, the only new road itself is the new cul-de-sac. It's not really a cul-de-sac, it's kind of got a loop end, not a circular end. For those new cottages up on, behind the community building. So there's two waivers related to the streets. One is for the separation distance for streets entering opposite sides. The new Road A center line to the center line intersection of Rolling Hill Circle is about 170 to 180 feet, 200 feet required. They are asking for a waiver of that distance and noted in their waiver request letter that the majority of the traffic from Rolling Hill Circle there turns right as it's exiting Rolling Hills to go down to Tree Line Drive, rather than turning left. That would have a close interference with that road there. I have some sign comments. Traffic impact study was reviewed. No roadway improvements are warranted. Again, as we know, some of the units being proposed here were already previously planned for in prior approvals. Their second saldo, third, if you count preliminary, combined preliminary final, is related to the paving cross-section. Their cross-sections vary slightly from our current ordinance requirements, but I went back and verified that they are consistent with what was used for phases 2 through 5. So they're asking for a waiver to allow them to continue to use the same paving cross-sections that we use for Rolling Hill Circle, the other parking lots and facilities in there. As far as we're aware, there have been no issues, with those paving cross-sections since they've been installed. Their landscaping, they have complied with all of our ordinance requirements as specified based upon the number of buildings, the footprint of buildings, new streets, parking lots, everything like that. So I just had a couple comments on a few notes and quantity requirements through there for the landscaping. So from a saldo standpoint, before I go on to stormwater management, are there any questions or comments on those review comments, the requested waivers for a combined preliminary final plan approval, the street intersection separation distance, or the paving cross-section, or on the proposed landscaping plan?
There's 4 waiver requests.
That was, the one got removed for the clear site triangles because they are providing those. So that waiver in my review letter was
Okay, so
removed.
that's 5C on page.
Right, do you get a copy of their new, you should have a copy of this. It was with your agenda, but this is their updated waiver request.
I don't recall seeing that.
Okay, I think she handed them out tonight. You can have that one, I believe, right?
Okay, no, that's fine.
So there are 3 for the subdivision land development ordinance, the combined preliminary final plan approval, street intersection separation distance, and the paving cross sections. Any questions on those or the landscaping that's proposed all of our quantities for street trees, and they're spread throughout, the facility. Aaron, if you have a chance, and if you haven't had a chance yet, within the next week or so, if you want to look at the species that are proposed, and if you email me any comments, I can pass those on to them. But from a quantity arrangement standpoint, they are meeting all of the requirements for, there's some for building footprint, for non-residential and residential buildings, loading area screening, parking lot screening, and the street frontages for the new street, as well as along the stretches of existing Rolling Hill Circle that are now being constructed with cottages along them.
So where are the seedlings going? Back off Scott's Pine where the other ones were before?
Yeah, I think, and we have I think we're intermixing them back into the remaining wooded areas as well.
Yes, so I know there's the wooded areas that are between the Stonecroft Apartment Complex and Tree Line Drive are being noted. The wooded area that's between the rear of the Stonecroft Apartments and the backs of those cottages on Rolling Hill Circle and the Hybrid Apartments, and some down in that Scotts Pine area. They have several areas of woodlands marked with them, and I think they use the same ratios as previously for the calculations. I think it's about 400 seedlings, 350 to 400 if I remember right, going in this time. So,
Because you're going to be taking out a lot of existing woodlands for the buildings behind Stonecroft.
There's some that's occurring in this area, which was largely included in the original master plan. That was where there were 3 of these buildings before, we turned that into 2 buildings and then the cottages. So there's a little bit more than there was in the original master plan, but that's part of what's still being accounted for replacement-wise. This area is currently not developed right now. So
Yeah, it
that
looks
was
like
part of the
wooded.
Yeah.
Wasn't some of it cleared up when,
The wind shear?
yeah,
Yeah, it's built back in quite a bit. I actually took note of that last time I was out. There was a wind shear, gosh, that was probably a decade ago, that came through and knocked out a lot of the woods in that area. Yeah.
all right, so if there's no other comments on the subdivision and land development, waiver request, review comments, or landscaping, touching on the stormwater management. So there's kind of, as Alex described, there's a ridge line in there, so all that new development with all the cottages and the apartment buildings and everything, that all drains to the rear, ultimately to what we call Basin C, which is up near the farm at the top. Yeah, that area, that's existing basin and foredeck that's getting a slight expansion. Basin D is being relocated to behind the cottages. That will still route into Basin E. There are no modifications proposed to existing Basin E. Same thing, there's an existing Basin F that was put in that serves down to the apartment complex area. That basin's staying. A few of the basins are getting some extra amended soils and put in them to help promote infiltration in those areas. But overall, everything to the south of the ridge line going towards Beaver Dam, there's new bioretention basins being proposed over there, and everything ultimately feeds into the existing larger scale basin that's there. So they are showing that they meet all of our peak rate runoff requirements. They're meeting their Delta 2 storm reduction between pre and post that's required for water quality and groundwater recharge under our ordinance as well as DEP. my review letter has just a few clarification, comments and confirmations in the routing, but overall their intent is to meet all of those requirements. And I don't think there's an issue in meeting those with the few minor tweaks in the calculations that are identified herein. Their storm sewers have analyzed for the 25 and 100-year flows, meet our ordinance requirements to drain through there, and we're verifying that where new storm sewer connects to existing storm sewer, that storm sewer downslope is sized appropriately for the flows. They have just a couple stormwater related waivers related to that existing drainage swale that Alex talked about discharging to. That is an established drainage swale. It's very well vegetated. There hasn't been issues with erosion or anything there. That was designed with 3-to-1 side slopes. Our ordinance does require 4-to-1 side slopes in residential areas. That's primarily due to ease of mowing. If you have individual homeowners taking care of it, in this case, Tel Hai has commercial landscapers that do come in. And also to provide a minimum 1-foot freeboard above the 25-year storm. They're providing at least 6 inches of freeboard above that swale. And as we know, that swale hasn't had any issues, in the past. Their other stormwater related waiver is to provide blanket easements, for access and for the stormwater facilities instead of identifying a lot of individual access easements, allowing the township to come in and, do inspections, and everything of the facilities as necessary. So, they do have one requirement, less than 1 foot of cover over the storm water conveyance pipes to the stone subgrade underneath the paving cross section from manhole H4 to end wall H1. And that's a replacement for existing stormwater management. So it does have a little less than a foot in there.
What kind of pipe? Is it ABS?
Yeah, well, that's what
Or
our
is it
SAG,
or something?
it's SLCPP, I think, the poly pipe, but we did check the specifications for it and made sure that based on their specifications, they do it from the surface elevation down as a foot versus from the subgrade, or subbase of the pavement down being a foot, which is what's important. So it does still meet the specifications of the pipe. And as Jen noted, it's in the replacement area, and that's why we're short on cover.
Okay, the only other stormwater related waiver, we mentioned the 2 square ones. The last one's just to match pipe crowns. So when you change pipe sizes, normally you want to match the tops of the pipe coming in. So there's 2 pipe runs where they're unable to match the downstream pipe crowns. Again, in placement areas. So that's for pipes H24 to H23, outlet structure H10 to manhole H3. And as we noted, the calculations for the 100-year storm, which is the largest design storm, show that there's no kind of surcharge issues with those pipes in there, with the grounds not matching. So we don't have any technical objection to any of the stormwater related waivers. Overall, the design is consistent with our ordinance, and the relief requested here is minimal and very restrictive to just a couple specific pipe runs and one specific swale. Do you have any questions on the stormwater management? As we noted, they do have to get their existing NPDES permit modified, so DEP will be reviewing all of the stormwater and infiltration and everything as well.
So I know, I saw that you have porous paving in an executive parking area. Is that to replace the porous paving that's on the sidewalk in front of Basin D?
So that's actually, that was a carryover note from a early version of the plan. We were thinking about doing it for just this small area here. Just with past experience with water table in this area and everything else, we did end up just using regular paving here and then just routing it through. We were initially thinking also that we wouldn't be able to convey that back into the system just based on the location, but we were able to pitch that in.
But the existing Basin D, and,
This,
the one you're gonna relocate?
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
So that sidewalk was porous paving, porous asphalt. Will you have to replace that as part of your stormwater, or do you have enough credits that you don't have to do that? Because I assume that that's gonna be torn out when you build those units and.
Yeah, that is gonna be replaced. Let me double check that with the walk. I was thinking that you were referring to that too. But let me double check what we're doing with that section of the walk as well.
Because what you're doing is, you're just piping from the end wall around the back of those units into the outlet structure and then across
Yeah, down
to the new location.
yeah, to Basin D.
So any other questions regarding any portion of this development that we have talked about?
And just to note, we did have a pre-application meeting with Conservation District and DEP, and following that, the NPS permit was resubmitted for review, so that process is underway. As Jen noted, that will have to be satisfied as part of the approval process.
Are you extending, or was the previous NPDES terminated?
We're modifying it.
You're modifying it,
We're making a
so
modification.
It was never
it's currently active.
Yeah, it is, yeah, it is remained active through the projects.
Any other questions?
The ambulance building, can you tell me more about that? Just in terms of how that's gonna work?
Yeah, so the ambulance company did engage a designer to work on a layout for the building. So the way this works is there are two bays, coming up Tel Hai Circle. You extend up here, if you're familiar with where the main entrance is to the community, the canopy here. Currently, there's a maintenance building that sits right here, where this building's proposed. That would be removed. There's actually a drive that sits there as well. So we've shifted the drive to the north a little bit. You'll come in the back here, there will be parking next to the building, and then there will be two bays for the ambulances that sit right here. And then there will be a front entrance door that's located on the east side of the building as well.
So Tel Hai is going to build that and maintain it, and the ambulance company just has access to use it, or?
So I don't want to misspeak on exactly, so this, there was an agreement that was reached as far as the details of who was doing what related to the construction of it as part of the settlement agreement. So that's included as part of the updated settlement agreement.
Some provisions in the settlement agreement, Aaron, that talks about Tel Hai and the Elderston Honeybrook EMS entering into a long-term lease consistent with Exhibit 6A in here, as well as Tel Hai supporting the EMS in fundraising, with Tel Hai residents and providing some financial support towards structures. So, yeah, there's guidelines for that were agreed to between all the parties. So the EMS was involved in part of the settlement agreement.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
So that ambulance will be going on calls and from that location?
Yes.
They're gonna relocate, I think they're gonna relocate out of in the borough to there.
Oh, they are,
I don't, it's not gonna be a third substation, is it? It's gonna be a relocation from in the borough.
Any other?
You want to give a chance to look at this and make sure that they have access to all the roads, through all the roads with the apparatus?
Yeah, one of the items that I think was commented that we will be providing, we did look at it, we actually honestly kind of looked back at past submissions. I don't know that we had included those in the formal submissions before, but we will be including turning templates to illustrate that. One thing I didn't note, there is a farm lane and an emergency access drive off of Park Road that provides another point of access into the community. So there is an agreement between Tel Hai and their neighbor as far as the use of that, and then for the neighbor's use of the drive and tree line drive through their community as far as, I believe, accessing into this field, these fields as well.
Will that road be paved?
This road is, it's a stabilized gravel that has been in place for probably 20 years now.
That's a pepper road.
And- Or I say at least that just because that's how long I've been working on it. And it's been there since I've been working on it. I'm sorry.
Is that September Road, the other end of it?
No.
No, that's
No.
just the farmer's drive leading
Yeah.
up to Park Road.
Okay.
And I know there was some discussion, consideration in the past, trying to be able to use that as another entrance for Tel Hai, but that farm's preserved, I believe, or under some restrictions, and that's not feasible under, like, they can't convey any of that land and anything for that, but part of that settlement agreement does mention ensuring that there's, recorded documents and everything for that to be the emergency access road.
And that that's kept in condition that it's usable.
Yeah,
And
and passable.
by emergency service vehicles.
Is the gate, is the gate still the same manual opening gate?
At the end of the, right here, the end of the field, yeah.
So if it's used, I'm asking this for a reason, but if it's used as an emergency access, is it just a non-locked, it used to be locked?
So there is a code on
Okay.
we had talked about making some improvements there for the purpose of EMS vehicles only, but there is a way for them to get through should we need to.
Okay. Did you have a question?
I was just curious, how do you change pipe size at an inlet and not have the crowns match?
I mean, basically, if you were looking at the inlet kind of head on, if your incoming pipe is sitting here, on the outflow side, basically, that pipe may be sitting lower. So essentially, water is just dropping down in the box and then going through that pipe. And part of that is to some of the waivers we discussed where you have coverage issues from the top of the pipe to the surface. So basically, water comes in here, and then it's dropping down in the box, and then it's coming out the bottom. So it's flowing through, a typical, and the ordinance requires that your pipes pretty much or line up this way, with the tops of them here, instead of the bottoms.
Appreciate it, thanks.
Sorry, goodbye.
So how many stories is that, the apartment building gonna be? How many stories high? What do you call that, how many islands?
Oh, the
That's-
nursing is 2-story.
Existing two stories as well.
The Road A, I
Yes.
assume that's what I know that's what Tel Hai is going to concentrate on first to do. Will you be doing the other cottages down below simultaneously, or are they big? What would you plan? Simultaneously. Okay. Then as far as the apartments, either behind Stone Croft or to the north of Stone Croft, What's your time frame on that?
We don't have one established at this point, that's an entertainment.
Okay. And the only other question I have is, a lot of the residents really appreciate the amenities that you're putting in there, particularly the putting green. Will the completion of the amenities, putting green and whatnot, be done as part of the occupancy permit, or is that second to that?
In terms of time. So from a township standpoint, they won't condition, you know, if the cottages get done and they meet all the building code requirements, they'll issue UNOs for them. The township does hold financial security for these projects. So there will be financial security held for those amenities, anything new that's going in, such that the applicant is on the hook to ensure they do provide those, you know, at some point. I don't know what your timing is, if you intend to do those at the same time as the cottages, since all that improvements in that area.
That would be the plan to do so. We were considering beforehand, when we figured all the earthwork and modifications that happened back there, it'd be better to wait till that process is completed, till we improve those.
So when they do those cottages, they should finish all those amenities behind the community center, so that that whole area is done, is their intended time.
And you're taking a little bit of the community garden, is that correct?
Yeah, a little bit of the east side.
10,
That's correct.
10, 15 feet, 20 feet?
I don't know the exact dimension of what that is off the top of my head.
I don't think it's very much.
No, I don't think it's very much either, I'm just trying to get
Yeah.
from the horse's mouth.
Look and see if I can just tell by scale for you.
Oh, Mr. McCleary moved to me.
So, do we have any other questions? The first thing we're going to do is take the waivers. Do we want to take all waivers? Do we want to split them, split out the storm and do two separate actions, or?
I don't mind taking them all at once.
You're okay with taking them?
Problem with anyone,
You okay here?
So then you could reference, in any motion, you would reference the waivers as outlined in the RGS Associates waiver request letter dated February 22nd, 2024.
Do we want to run through them quick? Know what they are? Are we good with just referencing the letter? Okay, so is someone going to make a motion to that effect? Okay, and the motion is, I'm assuming to recommend to the supervisor's approval of the waivers that are listed in RGS Associates letter dated February 22nd, 2020. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any comments or questions? All in favor of approving or making the recommendation, signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed?
And then if you're inclined, they would be looking for a recommendation for the board to grant conditional, it would be preliminary / final plan approval, and as a waiver to allow concurrent. And that would be contingent upon Technicon's February 14th, 2024 letter. And that does include, you know, all of the outside agency approvals with that PDS permit. There is notes in there about, you know, the fire access and everything being reviewed. So those items that you guys brought up are listed in the letter.
I'll make one. Second.
The only thing I'll make is that in 5C, it's listed as a waiver request. Well, we already took action on it, but that waiver item is, that's not going to, I don't think we need to do anything.
No.
It's just,
No, I'll just note that that waiver is no longer, I'll just make that a general statement within, in the minutes.
okay. So we have a motion and a second to recommend preliminary final for Tel Hai Retirement Community subject to the conditions in the Technicon February 14, 2024 letter. Is So are there any questions or comments? All in favor of that motion and second, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Great.
Alex, the board meeting should be March, I think it's the 13th, it's the second Wednesday,
Okay.
at 7 p.m.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
You bet. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our final land development action item for this evening, and that is the Vernon McIntyre Land Development Plan.
Yeah. Friends here, Vernon's here as well, Friends putting that up. You guys also saw this one a while back. They came in with a sketch plan submission, and then also for zoning relief, again related to floodplain soils through there. So this is out at 3766 Horseshoe Pike. There's an existing dwelling on the property now, as well as an existing basin in the rear of the property that serves development that's off of, I forget what the road exactly is, Park. I was thinking it was Park. So what they're proposing to do is to take down that existing single-family dwelling, replace it with a twin dwelling as well as a contractor shop to the rear, associated parking, driveway. They're going to pipe the existing basin discharge that currently drains through a swale along the property edge. They're going to pipe that down to the existing wetland area that's in the corner of the property, which ultimately discharges to a PennDOT head wall and goes under 322 there. They did obtain zoning relief for the two uses on the property, the area of bulk dimensions, the other zoning relief that they requested. Do you have any other general comments about the development itself before we go into the review letter?
No, I think it's covered very well.
Any questions before I go through the review letter? Okay. From a zoning standpoint, this is in the mixed-use commercial zoning district. As we said, they did get zoning relief to have a twin-family dwelling in the zoning district, as well as have two principal uses on the property. Zoning comment 3 talks about sidewalk along 322. The ordinance requirement, any lot with a front yard adjacent to 322 shall provide a sidewalk or pedestrian trail, location of which shall be approved by the Board of Supervisors. They are showing sidewalk going towards what would be the west, along 322 there, where there is, the pharmacy and the car wash existing complex through there. They're not showing sidewalk continuing to the east side. So the review comment from Mike, both here under zoning as well as in the Saldo, is whether that connection is sufficient or if there's a need for that sidewalk to continue on the other side, either to be constructed now on the other side, or if there's any need for any type of security to be posted for that sidewalk in the future. They did get the special exception from the zoning hearing board for that proposed access drive to cross the soils that are identified as floodplain soils, as well as the slight encroachment on the wetland margin area. They do not encroach upon the wetlands themselves. They're providing the required amount of parking. They just need to clarify the ADA parking space for the contractor shop, as well as the loading and unloading area. We just need the truck turning diagrams for there, but they are proposed to have a loading area. Same thing, we need the lighting plan and details on any signage. Any questions on the zoning review comments before I go into the Saldo?
So on the sidewalk, is it possible to do a deferral for, well, let me back up. Is the entrance curved?
It looks that way, yes.
So the sidewalk you're proposing will have an ADA ramp down to the paved area?
Yeah.
Okay, so then on the eastern side, is it possible or reasonable to do a deferral, that if in the future, if there's something that goes on, I doubt there'll be anything continuing down that side, but if there's something in the future that's done across the street, and it would line up with that would be installed in the future. I'm not suggesting that financial security be held forever. I'm just suggesting that maybe there could be a deferral letter that says that at some point the property owner may be required to put sidewalk in if in fact there's something that has to happen across the street. I don't know what could even happen across the street. I'm just,
That's easy property across the street, as part of the conservation reserve.
so that they.
Yeah, absolutely the green field.
So you're sure they have sold the development rights?
Just to put it here now, not back here it is. Want to show you?
You're talking about the other side of 323?
Yeah, I was saying that if something happens on the other side.
Because that's not a form of it. That's
So this is my property, and this is the Stolzfus property that says here, it has a agricultural easement.
Okay, then I'll take that back, because if they have an ag easement on there, the chances are that they're not going to be able to ever do anything, so, okay, forget the comment.
Anything else on the sidewalk or zoning, or move on to south? Okay.
So the form to the east, is that also land preservation?
I don't know if it is, but I doubt it. Anything, I'm
I
not
was thinking
sure.
the same thing, that I wouldn't think it would have to. You're talking about
It's not colored in, but it's the same owner. I don't know if they bought those ones or not.
We can verify that ahead of the board meeting, so the board can weigh in as well. And I'll just note in the PC general discussion on the plan that was raised, and if those adjoining properties are preserved, that the PC generally feels there's maybe more sidewalk continuation. With regard to the subdivision and land development, number one, they're looking for confirmation whether you guys would consider this a minor land development plan versus a major. Just as a reminder, the differences with those are one, minor plan allows a combined preliminary final plan approval. It also makes the landscaping at the discretion of the planning commission as opposed to having to show full compliance with all the landscaping requirements. The kind of difference you saw between the Calvary Chapel church plan, you had your discretion of where the landscaping would go, as opposed to the Tel Hai plan where they had to lay out and do all the calculations of all the requirements. Usually a traffic study is also the difference, but the low intensity of this use in either case would not warrant a traffic study. Through here, PennDOT does need to review the entrance itself, because it is coming up on the 322. So we'll go through the rest of these, and then you can, when we get to the landscaping discussion, you guys can comment on the major versus minor land development plan.
Do you have to get major paid?
They do have to get an HOP because there's a change in use of that driveway from just a single-family dwelling to the twin and contractor shop. So they do need to work that out with PennDOT.
Still be relying on.
I would think so. So one of the waiver requests, salvo comment number 9, again relates to street separation distance of 200 feet between access drive intersections on an arterial. There's an existing driveway to the north and west of the proposal. within that distance, a waiver is required. From our standpoint, as long as PennDOT issues the HOP for the new driveway, we feel that's up to PennDOT. So we would have no objection to the waiver. Number 10, just updating the paving cost section. Number 11 gets into the sidewalk discussion that we had. A street light should, number 12, a street light should be considered for the intersection of proposed access drive and Route 322 as part of the overall lighting for the proposal. The planning commission should offer comment to this requirement. So, I don't know if anybody feels a need for street light, or lighting out there to help illuminate that access. Any
There's,
thoughts on that?
where's the closest pole?
Looks like there's a pole directly across the street. I'm not aware if that has a street light, but that's just a pole near that opposite driveway. There may be poles,
Looks like there's a couple of them.
yeah, on opposite sides of the property.
If a light's put on a pole, does that mean that means the municipality has to agree to pay or maintain it? Or get a, what's it, this is people, right? So they would have to work something, that would be a street light agreement.
I believe so, yes. So probably, I'm sure they have an existing
I think-
agreements that would be added to
I
that.
think there should be something in that area to light up that entrance. Is there anything on the driveway to the west?
I don't remember.
Isn't there a couple looking for, like globes or something, that's, I don't know if they're lights or they can work, or if they're just decoration. That's what I was wondering, how far are the lights coming down, how, where's the closest one?
I'm thinking if anything, the one, if on those poles that are between the car wash driveway and this driveway, if there was a light on one of those, that might illuminate both.
Between those, isn't there shrubs or trees between the, sort of,
Yeah.
whole line shrub all the way all through?
Yeah, it looks like there's 2 existing poles out by the road, so maybe they could be added onto that pole. I'm not sure what PICO's requirements and everything are, but, I mean, it could just be, really, it could be, if you feel there should be some lighting there, it could just be a recommendation that the town should explore the possibility with PICO, of a light being added there.
So what do we think? Think there should be something there, whether it's on pole or post light or?
That should be something, as long as you don't get into the house across the street there, there's a house.
Right.
Okay, so
That would just shine.
recommendation that they explore lighting options for safety purposes there. Okay. Monuments and pins, they have to show, again, it's public water and sewer connections, they need to work those out with the respective authorities. Number 17 goes into landscaping. So, to mention the difference between minor and major land development, they have not provided a landscaping plan, so they're not proposing any landscaping. Beyond that, you noted on the property line there is some shrubs.
In the rear, it says proposed landscape buffer on the, kind of the southwest. And
Yeah, I
there's
think
also-
there's no,
There's also proposed,
Actually, row of trees.
that are proposed.
That is, existing.
Okay.
Yeah, and they would remain.
okay.
So why does it say proposed?
The buffer is proposed. I guess the buffer acts as kind of like an easement, but the zoning ordinance requires a buffer to be shown on the plan.
So it's a buffer but not landscape?
It's not landscape because the landscape trees, the trees are already there.
Okay.
It's just putting a buffer, a symbolic buffer
The
of
space.
land around it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, planning commission feel, is there any need for any screening or buffering, between the two uses,
Should have a map up.
around the loading area, yeah, so Erin has an aerial view
So that's,
up if you guys want to look at what the surrounding areas look like to determine your thoughts on landscaping.
Yeah, I think there should be some landscaping. What would be required under a major?
Major land development, it's usually street trees, you can pull Tel Hai stuff, the schedule here, on here.
so there's, except for one tree, there's nothing on the southeastern. Yeah, southeast or eastern boundary.
All right, so,
This boundary is a wide open pasture.
yeah, so for residential units, you're required 1 deciduous, 1 evergreen, and 2 shrubs per 2,000 square feet of residential building footprint. So each twin residential unit is just over 1,000 each. So you would be looking at 2 deciduous, 2 evergreen, and 4 shrubs for those. Non-residential building footprint, we have a 6,000 square foot shop. So we would be looking at a total of 3 deciduous, 3 evergreen, and 3 shrubs for that. Parking lots, if they have a full parking lot, but for parking lot and loading areas, it's per 100 linear feet of area, so you're going along the contractor shop. Probably if you call it 200, you know, when round off, we do whole portions. You're probably looking at 4 more deciduous trees, 4 evergreen, 4 more shrubs, and then for street trees, it's approximately every 50 feet, so you have a frontage of 122, so you're looking at 3 street trees along there.
Yeah, I'd like to see some trees on the plan and shrubs.
So what areas, Erin, are you
So
suggesting?
I think that the house should have the trees.
Between the house and the shop?
Yeah, yeah. I think the house should be landscaped.
On the eastern land there, there's nothing there.
Yeah, but that goes against the field, and sometimes we're cautious to suggest trees along the field for various reasons. If they farm it, and they get big.
It also looks like the, that dashed line that's down there. So, landscaping trees need to be 6 feet from underground utilities. So, showing where that 5-foot, you know, kind of buffer area is to that sanitary sewer line. It doesn't look like as you approach the street, I think you'd be tight to get that 6-foot separation. It may just make it if they're right on the property line.
Yeah, I mean, so just like to say, I think we have very limited opportunities for landscaping, just based off the numbers that Jen gave. I think we could accommodate some of those, but not all of them. I mean, if you look at the frontage, you can't put them in the PennDOT right of way. On this side, we have a wetland, so we probably put, you know, there's probably get a tree here, but then on this side, you have utilities and you have the stormwater basin. So there may not be any opportunity to put any other trees in, and I don't think we want to jam.
So is there the possibility to put, so within your infiltration basin that's there in the front, as opposed to just using a seed mix. Is there a possibility of putting some water tolerant trees and plantings in there?
If the township isn't opposed to that, yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, as long as they're water tolerant species, I think that's fine in there. You can probably get a few between that contractor shop and building and be away from those sanitary laterals. And then, so Erin, if we have the stormwater basin, the area between the home and the shop, and what about any at the edge of the paving in the rear, so that, you know, kind of like when you're looking into the site, you see any greenery in there, or any other areas that you think may be able to get some, and approximately how many are you looking for?
Well, based on your math, it would be 21 trees and 11 shrubs.
I mean, I just don't like when there's no landscaping. I just think it, you know, aesthetically, it just,
So,
you need trees and shrubs.
Should be on
around the
PDF.
house,
This disturbance is 100 acres.
so if they put, yeah, so say if they got 2 or 3 trees in the infiltration basin, plus whatever shrubs they could in there, they could put some shrubs in that driveway island between the 2 units.
Yeah.
And maybe some shrubs, because more are 6-foot separation is really more from trees than shrubs. So in that island between the driveway and the twin house, you may be able to get some shrubs
What
in
about,
there, and then a few trees behind the contractor shop.
what about on the outside of the asphalt, the paving, because it says there's a single-family dwelling back here, and we were concerned about shielding
Yeah,
that for the church earlier.
right.
What if we'd add, you know, we'd add the bulk of the trees back in that area? And that would shield the contractor's shop
Right.
from, how high is that building, contractor's shop?
Whatever is allowed by permit.
Still like up to 35 feet.
35.
Yeah,
See what I'm
that
saying?
would help, yeah, between,
Around the back of this to shield that from that.
what did we say, between the house
Yeah.
and the shop?
Yeah.
Yeah, between the house and the shop for trees. 2 to 3, you can probably get in that infiltration basin in the front, some shrubs in that basin, shrubs in the driveway, little separation between the 2 driveways, and maybe along the driveway, because that 6-foot separation is for trees, not shrubs, I believe. And then, yeah, if you can put some to the rear of the paving.
Are you taking down the trees in between that property and the car wash?
They're staying. Oh, yes.
Yeah, you could probably, if you, in the areas that Jen suggested, plus one in the back, you can probably get close to.
Yeah, I was just referring to the street trees at that point, but if we can put them in the basin, that's not a problem.
It's species driven now. I don't know, you can work with them to figure out what.
Yeah, which ones are water tolerant and,
Or you can
you know, yeah, looking at height and things like that, so. All right, so that's from landscaping standpoint. So, so if you guys are good with the landscaping kind of being at your discretion, assuming you guys are okay with this as a minor land development plan to do a combined preliminary final plan approval. Saldo landscaping as we discussed in here. The sidewalks we talked about, the connection depending upon, the adjacent preservation of those, particularly the one across the street. From a stormwater standpoint, I lost my letter. No, I think it's here. Where is that? So they're looking, do the soils in the area. There are decent infiltration rates, but they don't have the 24-inch separation distance between the bottom of the infiltration basin and top of the limiting zone. So they have requested a waiver for that. Same thing, there's the separation distance between the 25 foot from all buildings, features with subgrade elements, as well as 10 feet from lot line or right-of-way line. Stormwater facilities appear to encroach on those setbacks, would require a waiver as proposed. Elevation-wise, with that infiltration basin that's alongside the building, I know the bottom of infiltration bed, I think, was almost 9 feet lower than the first floor of the building. When I looked at the details, is that building proposed to have any type of basement?
No.
Or just a standard footing? Okay. Usually, for any consideration of a waiver for that separation distance, we do look at the elevations of any basement or anything else from the building compared to the elevation of the bottom of the stormwater facility where it would be infiltrating. We don't want to promote infiltration where it's going to go into your basement walls. So in this case, that infiltration bed is substantially lower than even the footings for that building would be. So I'm not necessarily have any opposition, to that separation distance in there. They will, Mike just has a couple comments about the roof leaders, measures to prevent clogging by debris and sediment, providing an underdrain for a pipe, and minimum slope of an outlet pipe is required to be 0.5%. They're proposing 0.47%. And they had about needing a planting plan for the above ground facility. We did talk about providing some shrubs and trees in there. Bryn, can you get to 0.5% on that pipe?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get that.
Okay. And then there's one pipe in there that's proposed as 12-inch, and there is a 15-inch minimum diameter for any piping within a vehicular loading area. They did show that size-wise, I believe the 12-inch pipe can handle the flow. Is that correct, Bryn?
Yeah, so, there's the 12-inch connecting into the existing storm sewer,
Is there, did you go to 12-inch just because it works, or is there a cover condition issue, or?
I think we had cover issues, and then we also used the pipe barrels as the outlet structures. So we had, this captures the water from up in this area, and then it has an outlet structure pipe that feeds into the infiltration bed at 6-inch, and then the overflow goes to the 12-inch. And then this basin also has a small over to the head wall.
The balance of the comments are as-built plans, the operation and maintenance notes and agreement, and items such as that. So overall, the waivers they are requesting for the stormwater ordinance are the 24-inch separation between the bottom of the BMP, top of the loading zone, the separation distance from the buildings and property lines, and the pipe diameter for those couple pipes to be 12 inches in lieu of 15. And for the saldo, it's to not have sidewalks along the entire frontage. Do you have any questions or comments on the waivers being requested, the review letter, or the plan in general?
I know, you-
Yes.
I'm sorry. There was one other that didn't make it into the letter, and it was the loading ratio requirement. And I looked that requirement up, it's per DEP, per DEP's requirements, which is I think 5-to-1 impervious and 8-to-1 overall. And we would, due to our limited area, we have to work with it. We wouldn't be able to achieve that.
Okay.
And I think that was coming from the stormwater.
Okay. So we'll add in there, exceed the loading area ratios outlined by DEP. I will say with those, generally when we have waivers of those features required, it's on plans that are going through the NPDS permit process. When we defer to the DEP grants the waiver as part of the NPDS permit, we generally accept it. In this case, it's not an NPDS permit. But DEP is in the process of updating the BMP manual that specifies those loading ratios. And the webinar that I sat in this fall on it did say they're moving away from those loading area ratio requirements. And what those loading area ratio requirements are is you have your basin footprint, the bottom of your basin, so say that's 1,000 square feet footprint. They don't want more than, so if it's a 5-to-1 loading ratio, they don't want more than like 5,000 square feet of impervious coverage being drained to that footprint. It goes into, how well the system can function and infiltrate. Their actually intention in the new BMP manual is to change those requirements such that it's more based upon they focus more on the infiltration rate and the soils and everything that are there as opposed to the loading ratios and what you can do with plantings and things like that. So in this case, where they do have decent infiltration rates, they are not just doing the kind of seed mix in the bottom of that basin, but also doing water tolerant plantings, which achieve water quality as well with those plantings. I don't have an objection from a technical standpoint for that loading area ratio.
So you're saying we don't have to wait?
I think you can still waive it, but I don't have any issue with the waiver that's being requested. So I can, we would add that to the list of waivers. So the waivers that they're asking for from the stormwater ordinance would be the 24-inch separation distance to the limiting zone, the setbacks from the building and property line for the infiltration BMPs, the loading ratios for the BMPs, and the pipe diameter for the storm sewer conveyance, as well as a saldo waiver related to providing sidewalk along the entire frontage. And that one, you guys want elimination of that sidewalk on the other side, as long as that property across the street and those would be preserved such that development is unlikely.
We have to waive the preliminary to make it a minor.
You can just state that you're considering it a minor plan.
And we needed the driveway, that driveway separation under Southwood Common Pond, because we can't provide a 200 here.
Okay, that one wasn't on the waiver list, so.
So do we want to take the waivers altogether? So we have
Six total.
the sidewalk, 2760484, that's number 3 on the saldo. And under, I'm sorry, that's under zoning. No, that can't be under zoning.
No, it's again on saldo number 11, review comment 11 in saldo, as well as review comment number 9 is the intersection separation distance for the saldo.
And that's 22.615.3A1.
Correct?
And the sidewalk one is section 22.618.1.
Yeah.
And then we go to stormwater,
Is number 2.
which is section 23.06.1I1.
Correct. Number 4 for the separation distance.
That's 23.06.1J and 310.6.
Number 8 regarding the loading ratio.
That's 23.11.2.
And number 9 regarding the pipe size.
And that's 23.11.1, or .3.
Yes.
Okay, we all follow along? Someone want to make a motion to recommend or not recommend to the supervisors that they grant the waivers?
I'll make the motion.
To grant? Okay, we have a motion and a second to grant. Any questions?
Was that Troy and
Sure.
Levi?
Anybody? There's no further comments. All in favor of the recommendation, signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Okay, and then, I can just put in the notes, or in terms of the landscaping, we're asking for landscaping to be provided as able within the infiltration basin, any street trees that they can fit in, shrubs around the dwelling, driveway areas, trees, and those shrubs behind, between the 2 buildings, and trees along that rear property edge or the loading area, edge of pavement there in the rear, to the greatest extent possible based upon separation distance for those.
So you're gonna add that, that's gonna be added to the conditional letter if we
Right,
move it forward.
Correct, that would be one of your conditions, that landscaping is added to the plan as described in the planning commission meeting. I'll outline it, in the letter with your specifics. It would also be conditioned upon Technicon's review letter dated February 19th, and consideration of the plan as a minor land development. If you would prefer to see the plan come back so you can see the landscaping plan, you can do that, it's up to you guys. So if you wanted to see it come back, then you would hold off on your conditional.
But you're gonna see it, so you're gonna review it, you know what the discussion was.
Yes.
Do we need to see
Yeah,
it
so
come
as long
back?
as you're satisfied with that, I understand what you guys are looking for.
So the motion would be, I'm assuming the motion would be to recommend this as a minor plan, so this would be a final plan, conditioned on Technicon's letter of February 19th, plus the additional condition of the landscaping. Cover everything?
I believe so, yep.
So I'd like to ask for a motion to that effect.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, need a second? Any other questions or comments?
Is that Levi and Levi, or was that Troy that picked up? Okay, I thought it was Levi and Levi. Okay.
With no further questions, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay.
Okay. This will go to the board meeting on March 13th. If it's possible to get a landscaping plan to us ahead of that meeting, that would be helpful, so that the board would have that exhibit.
So that's March 13th.
I believe so, as long as that's the second Wednesday.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
use application as a placeholder for Celsius variance?
Yes. So this is on 1052 Park Road. Kind of twofold. It became aware to the township last year that they do like a pumpkin farm with hay rides and all kinds of things in the fall time. It came to light because they were asking the health department for some other type of fire hood, something. It came to the township. In conjunction with that, we found that there were some greenhouses and other structures put up without permits. So we're working to bring things into compliance. Ultimately, the use for the whole pumpkin farm operation kind of goes beyond the normal like farm stand that they have there. The township itself, like management standpoint, we haven't had any complaints or anything about the business, but they would ultimately need a variance for the use. They also needed a variance for some greenhouses that were put up for a side setback line. So we recently received a zoning hearing application with regard to the setback for the greenhouses. But our advice to the applicant was we should work to get the zoning hearing application comprehensive to address the pumpkin farm operation at the same time, instead of having them go through the zoning hearing twice. So I'm still working with the applicant to modify his application. We didn't get that done in time for this meeting, so you will likely see this on your March agenda. In the meantime, for tonight, just in the event that he decides not to move forward with expanding the application, if you guys have any comment, I believe the setback for the, check this letter. He's proposing the greenhouse to be 35 foot off the property line. I'm pretty sure it abuts another ag property. Just check his setbacks here. I believe it was required to be 60 foot off the property line. He's proposing 35 for where it is now. So I don't know if the PC wants to take any position on it at this time, or you'd rather just wait to see if he modifies his application, and we'll address it at that time.
How big is that property?
It is almost 70 acres.
Is it an ag preservation?
It may be. This image says aerial photo of the Stoltzfus easement.
Is there any time constraint? Has a zoning hearing been set?
No,
So-
no. And we'll have him, as necessary, grant the extension from that 60-day requirement. So I think you guys are fine waiting till your March meeting to see if he adds the other relief in there.
And I was kind of nodding yes.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I just want to make you aware of that one. I don't have anything else, unless you guys have anything under other business.
We just have, before we adjourn, we just have open forum for anyone on, yes, sir.
Just a quick thank you, and appreciate your guys' time and effort. I appreciate you.
Anyone on this side?
I have a question about the last applicant. That commercial business that's supposed to be in the back, is that like a trucking business? What is that?
No, it's more like a contractor shop, so like if a plumber has his office there, or a home builder, there's a specific definition of contractor shop in the zoning
So you don't
ordinance.
expect a lot of big trucks coming in and out?
No, there shouldn't be, no, it's more like a true like a contractor, an electrician, a plumber.
Okay.
It could be a residential like home contractor, like a framer, carpenter, but not like a whole-scale manufacturing operation or anything like that.
They would probably have to apply by looking at them as well.
yeah, there's all the time and noise requirements and all those things. All of that.
Nothing else? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Okay. All in favor?
All right, who made the first motion? No, it's always a competition to see who can make that motion first. That's one consistent thing between every municipality.
Thanks for coming out. A little bit more on the agenda this evening than usual.